This is Getting Past Subtitles. My name is Sean Peel.
And I'm DK Lee.
And welcome to week number 3 of what I thought was a series about having like little money and then having no money and then somehow you get all the money and then you lose all said money because of like morals or something.
Maybe.
Right? Isn't that's how it ends?
I guess. I mean, this kind of had that, except for the moral part.
And that happened like as you just like in the middle, like beginning. That kind of like set it off. But it didn't. It certainly didn't end that way.
Yeah.
I guess not. But what we ended up with this week was more like you're so poor.
Yeah.
That you gotta use your life into slavery as collateral.
I mean, while I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, wow, this movie seems a lot like Squid Game.
Yeah, yo. I was going to make that joke so many times on this episode.
And lo and behold, it was inspired. Squid Game was inspired by Kaiji. In some aspects.
There's an entire scene that is literally ripped from this movie.
Yeah. But I like the way that they did it in Squid Game.
Yes,
so much
I was like, but it feels like this was a bad rip of Squid Games.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's better. It's so much easier to improve upon something than be the first one to, think about something. So I mean, I give them, their props. But yeah, I mean. They did it so much better in Squid Game. I feel like we can go into it more later. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, I think, just general like ideas and the ways that the movie flowed that was very similar, I think, in Squid Game as well. And I can see like a lot of the inspirations that he got from it, from like all these, for example, for all these people who are the lowest of lows, who are desperate and they need money and they play games to try to make it big. Yeah, that's very prevalent in this movie. There's also like the fact that they play like basically child games, right? Like rock paper, very simple games, I should say, not necessarily child games in this movie, but just like very simple games that anyone can do, and that's kind of the thing that
that's like pulls, a little bit of a through line.
That pulls them through.
Yeah, but like the kid games here were made a little complicated than necessary.
I mean, it's not really kid games, right?
No, not really.
Only rock paper scissors is basically, but that's not technically
really
a kid game. It's more like
it's like they're like not even. Like, you can't really call them gambling, like, technically, because
it is gambling, right? Because they're wagering their life and they're also wagering money.
Yeah, but they're not playing, like, traditional card games or, like, you know, or dice or anything like that.
Except for the last game, which was kind of a card game, but it's kind of like a... It's more... it's like a more...
Like a gamey...
It is a game.
Yeah.
It's more of a game than a card game.
Yeah.
It just happens to use these, like, card-looking things.
Well, nothing like casino related in this movie.
Yeah,
I guess is really what we're trying to get at.
But they are still gambling, so it is.
Yes,
it is. Yeah,
it is gambling. Fine. Do they earn the title? I guess.
Yeah.
But it definitely just overall my feelings. It's like a worse Squid Game. Really. It's just not a good movie.
I mean, I enjoyed. I think I enjoyed the movie, like, up to like the half of the movie, and then it was really, really draggy, like in the middle of the movie, and even like towards the end of the movie.
You think, once he goes into slavery, you think is that the middle point?
Even then, I thought it was like still okay, but it's when they were doing the walking across the bridge part that really was draggy.
That was like
I was like, man, like this is it and like if I talk about this, I'll have to compare it with Squid Game and then kind of like talk about that. But should we go over the synopsis today, or you want to just like go through?
Yeah, I could do something really quick. But I can talk a little bit about the movie. So obviously, so Kaiji, the Ultimate Gambler. So it came out in 2009. It's a little dated for me, I guess. It's right at the cup of 2010, but it's cool. It's whatever. Directed by Toya Sato. This is actually an adaptation from a manga called Kaiji. There's like, I forgot what the arc is called, but like the first movie is based off, I think, of like a specific arc.
Yeah.
But this is the first movie in a trilogy, with part 2 releasing in 2011, so like right after. And then they didn't even get the final movie till 2020, so it's been like 10 years.
Yeah.
But they brought everybody back, which is pretty interesting.
It must have been like a lot older.
That's like 10 years. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You got to add plus 10 to every actor that was, or at least the main guy.
Yeah.
So that's a huge difference for sure. But yeah, I guess it did seemingly okay.
I mean, if they made a trilogy out of it, then it must have done okay, right?
I feel like that's just like a Japanese thing, though. They're just like, we're committed to doing all of it.
Regardless.
Like, yeah, I don't know if they're very much like,
I mean, it couldn't have been so bad that it couldn't have been a negative that they were unwilling. Like, you know what I mean? If it was a negative, they would not,
it probably just like was like baseline.
You need to make a profit at least for it to like, have some kind of drawing power for the next. But yeah, I mean, considering that it was adapted from the manga, I feel like it would still have like a general fan base.
Right.
Who would be interested in watching the movie.
The manga's so old though. Like, I think the manga's really dated.
Yeah, still.
So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the movie feels like a very adaptation movie, right? Like it's very corny. And it's kind of got like, like a lot of excessive and over the top scenarios and like plot and kind of like just the whole vibe of it all. But yeah, the movie's pretty much about this guy whose name is Kaiji, and he's dirt poor. And like, it's weird because actually it's not even like, I mean, he's poor, but he's not like in super debt himself, right? It's that he
gets framed.
Yeah. Basically, or he like basically like co-signed to a loan with somebody who whatever happened to him, and all the debt was on him after once they couldn't find him. So he's like in debt because of somebody else. And then he's like, basically he meets Rinko Endo, and she's like, well, you can play this game and make all the money back and like pay off your debt and some, so to speak. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And he gets put into this like cruise ship with a bunch of other people like of his caliber.
In debt.
And in debt, basically. Yeah. And there's this guy named Tonegawa who he's like we don't even know his title, but like basically he's like running this whole program that's like this game to pretty much like giving it a chance to everybody that's in debt to kind of win it back, but they get even into more debt.
Yeah, but if you lose, you have to work for this company.
Yeah.
Who's trying to build this underground like fallout shelter, but it's not just a fallout shelter. It's basically like a luxury, luxury resort like fallout shelter that's massively big underground.
Right.
And they're using these people in that as basically slaves for their.
Right. So if they win, they pretty much get a free pass, and if they lose, they get put into slavery to like repay their debt essentially. Yeah. But basically to like build this literal kingdom that like the president of this whatever company wants to do. So anyway, Kaiji pretty much has like this little rivalry with this guy named Hunai, and they play an iteration of rock paper scissors in this first game where they have cards, rock papers and scissors, and they have, for each one they win, they have to like take stars. And so like the condition to win is like you have to have at least 3 stars, and you have to have no cards in your hand in order to move on. And so it kind of drags on, and Kaiji pretty much makes friends with this old guy named Koji, and eventually they make it out together. That is until Koji like realizes that he had a card, and he's about to be brought into slavery. And then Kaiji's like, no, wait, we were in it together, so I go with you. And then they both end up into slavery together.
Yeah.
And then it's like, How long passes? How long?
It's not. It's ambiguous. They don't really tell you how long.
I thought he says like 15 years. I'm like, ain't no way in hell it's been like 15 years.
I don't think so.
It's been a while. It's been a while that they've been in slavery, basically.
Because he gets his first paycheck.
Right.
So he must have been pretty recent when he gets his first paycheck.
It's probably been a month because they get it
every monthly,
okay, right? Yeah. So a month that he's been working there, he gets his first paycheck, but they don't even get real money. They get like this fake
currency,
TAI
currency called parika or something.
Parika, yeah, something like that. Like they basically just spend it on snacks, and it's worth like 10% of a yen or something. Like it's just like what would be $1 in that currency would be like 10 cents to us, basically, right? So he's like doing that, and then he finds out that there's like, if you get into like even more debt, or like you can take a chance to kind of like escape, quote unquote, through this challenge, you can say, called Brave Man's Road, I think it was called, right? And he like, basically they're like kind of bunched up. It's like platoons almost, right? And one of the guys who gets like sick, his name is Makoto Sahara. Pretty much he like can't work anymore because he's like sick. And so his only option is to do the road. And then Kaiji, being rebellious, like also wants to do it with him. Yeah, volunteers to go with him. And it's like basically in exchange for your life to do that. Yeah. So it's like life or death. So they go up to like the surface finally, into the rooftop of like the company headquarters, wherever it is. And the game or challenge is basically to walk like a beam from
one building to another, one skyscraper to another.
Yeah, because like a twin skyscraper. Like think twin towers essentially. Yeah. And think of like just the beam in between. Yeah. And so they have to walk. It's literally the beam scene from Squid Games. Through and through. Vests and all.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to do that. But they can walk it, but they can't touch the beam or they get electrocuted, right? So there's like them and there's like 20 other people, and basically everybody dies, including the old guy, in a very long and tragic sequence. But then Sahara and Kaiji make it to the other side, but then Sahara dies after opening up the window because it's like poof of air, and then and plot twist death, I guess you can say. So Kaiji is the only one who makes it back, and pretty much basically you get like a 10 million check essentially at the start, and if you make it to their side, you get to keep it and cash it in essentially. So he gets his winnings along with Koji's winnings, but he's kind of denied Koji's winnings essentially. And Kaiji, like in another rebellious moment, kind of challenges Tonegawa and like everybody there, and like the head president like is like, oh, takes an interesting of this guy, and then he like convinces him to play another game, which is like an all or nothing kind of wager essentially, basically using, I guess, the 10 million that he had, right? And it's like a 3-1 odd.
It's a 10 million that he had, but he was in debt, so he had like it's all the debt that gets paid off with the 10 million, and then whatever he has left over.
So it was only like 400,000. Like it was something ridiculous.
Yeah, it was
right?
like 700,000 or something like that that he had left.
So he has to play this game called what was it called?
E-card.
E-card?
Yeah.
That's what.
And the E stands for the Emperor.
Emperor, right. Yeah, E-card. And basically like the way that it goes is, so you either like the Emperor side or the slave side, and you get 5 cards, is it?
And one of them is the Emperor and one of them is a slave for the 2 sides. And
the other 4 are citizens.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like rock, paper, scissors, essentially. You can think of it that way. Where it's like basically Emperor beats citizen, and then citizen beats a slave. Slave loses to everybody. He can only beat the Emperor, though. So it's basically like, so it's obviously the slave is in a disadvantage, and that's why you have like a 1 to 5 chance in winning. So anyway, he plays the game and he wagers it, and then he loses twice to Tonegawa pretty convincingly, and then he goes back into slavery for the rest of his life. But then he convinces Rinko Endo to side with him and loan him more money
Yeah.
to win again after like giving him his ultimate strategy.
Yeah.
So he goes back to the table and like they agree to play again. And then he ends up winning reluctantly. And yeah, he comes out on top, and then Tanegawa ends up going into slavery because the president's like, "You're an idiot."
Yeah.
And so Rinko and Kaiji kind of like are finally broken from the system, you can say, and they go out to celebrate. And then Rinko Endo basically rips off Kaiji by stealing all of his money in like excuse of repaying all the debt that he'd owed, including the debts that he's amounted while playing the game. And that's only left him with like 100,000 yen, which is like a couple $100 basically, after like earning millions. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Like he pretty much does a full circle with Koji, the old guy, who's like, "Give money to my daughter who's also in debt because of me," and he does that, and that's pretty much the end of the movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simplistic all in all. There's like 3 games that are played in total, really. There's not like a lot that's going on. I think like the biggest problem is that they're really dragged out.
Yeah.
Like, each one of them is like really, really long.
I think it really is the execution of the games and the way that they are trying to, it's like what they're trying to emphasize, right?
Yeah.
For example, like what I was going to talk about with the game with the beam and then walking across the bridge is like, it's you lose the tension of them, like and the fear of them falling when you have them have monologues in the middle of them, like in the rain, like standing, and like they're acting like they're about to fall, but you're like, obviously if you're gonna do this monologue, you're not falling, right? It's the believability there like really falls off. No pun intended. Like it really like makes you feel like, wow, like if you had all this time to be talking, you could have just
one foot in front of the other, man.
Yeah, one foot in front of the other, and you would have probably made it by then. And then like at the end of that, when like Sahara opens the door and like he falls off, like that is not how air pressure works, first of all.
I like how Tanegawa is like knew all along is like, difference in air pressure. Dun dun dun.
But the thing is, like, he had the doorknob, right?
Yeah.
If you were holding on to the doorknob and you opened it, you wouldn't have fallen like that. You could have still hold on to the doorknob and you'd be fine, you know, like just like little like inconsistencies like that really like kind of just like annoyed me a lot in this movie. Like also even like when they're playing the cards in the beginning of the game, the first game, like what rule was there where he's like, if you hold on to, like, if the 2 guys hold on to the card, you lose, like that, like those kind of things. And like the other thing was he was playing Funai first, right? And he got rid of like basically like all of his cards except for 1.
Yeah. So
technically he only has 1 card left. Like he can't get more cards unless that's part of the, you know, the rules, right? Like like how is he able to because at the end he with what's the guy's name? Koji, yeah. He's like he's drawing, right, with Koji, using Koji's cards. Yeah. But it's like that's not part of the rules either. Like once you're done with the 1 card, then you're done with the game, right?
There was also no rule saying that you couldn't like team up cards. And
so that's what I'm saying. Like the thing is like it's so like just whatever. You know what I mean? Like like you can make up whatever and be like, okay, I want to go into. So basically, he just volunteered to go into slavery, and it just kind of like literally like because he's like, oh, I don't want to leave you behind. So that's what he did. But it I don't know. It just kind of all feels very like forced. Right?
Yeah.
It feels very forced.
Yeah, there was no like, I don't know, like there's just no even like reason or drive for anything like ever in the movie. I feel like, as far as even why like Kaiji's in debt, like everything with him.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, like even no motivation.
The setup was bad too.
Yeah, yeah.
I like the movie. It's interesting because like while I was watching it, I did think it was pretty interesting until like the half of the movie, and I think most of that was because of the premise of the movie, like what the movie is trying to do, and the concept of like this guy, and obviously the concept is basically the same as Squid Game, which is why I'm saying like Squid Game just did it better. I feel like, but it's just that concept of like a man like struggling and doing whatever he can and using his wits to try to overcome these things. And I thought that was a fun and interesting premise, which is why like I kept on, I was interested through and through. And I even think that the Emperor card game was pretty interesting too. And I think that was pretty interesting. It's just the way that they execute it and the length of time that they wait on like all the subplot, like the monologues and all of that, internal things that they like literally like spew out. That's what makes it really hard to watch, I think. Like you need to have it so that the audience, you have to trust the audience to understand that things happen, and like you and the audience will understand that regardless of you like having to like say it verbatim, like with your words, like with dialogue. And I think that's what like this movie kind of misses. Like it misses the mark on that aspect.
It's like, again, I feel that's a very kind of like manga anime adaptation thing, where if you read a lot of manga or anime, especially with these kinds of stories,
it does that a lot.
Where it's like gambling or a game, and it's like you have this smart character, and it's like,
and he's like,
gotta explain like
everything.
The plan, like this is how I'm gonna do it, and this was like how I solved the mystery.
Or even like Death Note, where like L is like, oh yeah, I was watching through the monitor in the little like cookie, like the chips, the bag of chips or whatever. Like it's that like explanation part of mangas that kind of, as the audience, as a reader, you're like, oh yeah, I understand what's going on. But like as a film medium, you're like,
it's like we can see action. Like
we're watching it, we're seeing what's happening, and people, emote things even when they're trying not to. Right? That's the thing about human beings, is like they try to hide things, but like they're not the best at hiding things. And I think, in Squid Game, there are moments where like the character is trying to hide things, but like clearly they can't, because they're like the tension's up. They're about to die. Like there are these things that, like, I'll give you an example. Like there's that moment when I actually forget his name, but the smart guy, you know who I'm talking about?
The glasses guy.
The guy with the glasses, smart guy who is friends with I forget the main character too.
I don't know everybody's name.
Anyways,
the main character is like, he's like acquainted with him, because he's like
well it was his like childhood like older like person he used to know, right? And he was like an investor, but like he went to like a good school and all that. But there's that moment when they're doing the game where you have to like peel off the sugar. And the smart guy, he figures out that it's that game, and like he figures out that the easier the shape, the easier time you're gonna have. And he looks back at the main character, like it seems like he's about to tell him something, but he just decides not to. All without dialogue, and you're like, oh yeah, exactly what's going on in his mind, right? Like that's like how you're supposed to tell the story, through the actions and through the visual medium of film. And I feel like in this movie, it's like, oh, like let me tell you what I'm going to do, and like there's all the internal monologue stuff that kind of is telling the audience what should be just shown.
I know. The scene where he's like, I know you want the yakitori, you want the chicken.
Oh yeah.
It's like good to let loose. He's like thinking about buying like the cheaper like chips, and then all of a sudden the guy comes, he's like, I know you want the chicken, man. Like, buy the chicken. I haven't had something greasy in a long time.
Like all of that, like it's so dialogue heavy that it kind of takes away from the suspense and the moment, like that could really like elevate it to like a really suspenseful thing.
it's just like annoying because it also just adds time to everything, you know. Like I said, it's a little redundant in the fact that we understand the point, you know, and if you're just kind of re-spewing it or going into a long monologue or explanation verbally, like it's just that's when you get it. It's like prolonging the whole thing. And
Yeah.
nothing. You're like frozen in time because nothing moves on. Either,
like they want
right?
to, you know, create the emotional moment, right?
Right.
Especially when they're doing the bridge, when they're on the bridge, they want to create that emotional moment between the main character and the and Koji.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it actually does the opposite effect, where you're like,
die already.
yeah, I mean, maybe not to that extent, but like it's that moment when you're like, oh, like this is taking a really long time. Like your suspension of disbelief like starts to like erode.
Right.
When you're constantly in this like dragging on moment of him trying to, you know, be like, oh, don't go, like don't leave,
Yeah,
like,
no.
you can do it.
I'm
like
not gonna leave without you.
I'm not gonna, yeah, like you give the money to your daughter, like,
Yeah.
you know, that's all great and all, but like you're literally in the rain, you know, wind blowing apparently, and
The situation's like getting more and more worse.
like it's
as
just
you're
not
doing
believable,
dialogue.
right?
Yeah.
Like it just at least in Squid Game you had a platform where it's a lot more stable.
You
And,
had
like,
time to be like,
you
all
can
right,
talk
we can
and
think
kind of
now.
do something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whereas like this is like literally a beam, and it's way more like harder,
Yeah.
like just physically to do something there. And I think that when you're like thinking about that and also like seeing them talk in that way, in
Yeah,
that manner, it just kind of ruined it for me. and like Sahara too, he's
Oh yeah.
the whole time that they're doing that monologue, he's just been chilling next to him. He didn't even
Not
go.
even. Yeah. No. He's like watching the whole thing.
Yeah, like, what? Like,
uh,
Would you not think that he would have just like made it through like by the
by the
time
time they finish
'cause,
talking.
yeah, like stuff like that kind of like was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, that was a good point about the platforms because, like, I think the main thing that I thought that I was kind of annoyed with was just that, like, it's not like this, particularly the beam scene. It's not a particularly interesting thing to watch. Like,
that's
it's
true.
It's really straightforward. Of like,
You just
you gotta cross. Yeah, you gotta cross, and then the whole thing about like, okay, you can walk on it, but you can't touch the beam was kind of dumb in of itself.
And that's another thing that is actually really, I think, really prevalent here too, in comparison with Squid Game, is that in this movie, the main character is loved by all people who are competing with him. He's basically the hero character, right?
Right.
Whereas in Squid Game, their opponents, they want to kill each other, right? Like they don't really care about each other. And that also adds another layer of like suspense and another layer of tension there.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if the guy next to you or behind you wants to kill you.
Yeah.
Whereas in this movie, you're like, they all are in it together. They all want to survive together and they're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And so like moving across the beam is literally just like there's only one objective there, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to worry about the person behind you or in front of you. You just have to go through.
Yeah. And so it's like
And-
every time that something is abrupting that objective, it's like, why are we stopping?
Yeah, you don't have to stop.
Yeah.
You can have that whole monologue conversation at the end.
Yeah.
Once you've crossed.
Nothing is justified for you stopping the whole time.
Like and that frustrated me too. Whereas like that kind of tension in Squid Game made sense and it adds to it.
Right.
Whereas here it kind of made it worse.
That's what I said about like the platforms in Squid Game, because like the game was literally like crossing the beam, but there was, you know, it was like the glass and then a step on each side. So it made it like you actually had to decide what glass was fake or not.
Yeah.
So like it added in the game itself the suspense of right or wrong.
Yeah.
Where it's here, there's none of that. It's, like I said,
Right.
it's just a straightforward objective. So there was no reason to stop. And like any time that there was the monologue or something obstructing them from going, which is not justified because why? like you all share the same goal.
There's like it's like the level of priorities that they need to be doing is like get across first is like number one, right?
Exactly.
but they're trying to like do all these other things that are like lower priority first.
Right.
And that makes it feel like it's not believable.
Right. It just sucks. And then like drawing the line in the shoe with the marker. Where did he even get the marker from? Okay, like where he just like pulled that out of his pocket.
Yeah.
Like, were you carrying that?
Did Tonegawa give you one? Just to like, here you go. Like you can have one.
I'm gonna give you an edge in the competition if you know.
I was like, what?
Like where did that even come from?
Yeah.
And then like the line didn't even help. Like it wasn't even a thing as they were walking.
Yeah, like you can see their feet. They're literally like
they're literally like sideways. Like they're not even using it. This is the most retarded thing. And like then there's like the guy in front who was like, "There's wind."
Yeah,
and there's like no wind.
Yeah,
it's great.
If there was wind and that powerful, you would just fall off, dude.
Yeah, you just like poof.
How are you gonna balance like that? It's really, like at that height, it's really not easy. There was actually a real life person who walked across the Twin Towers.
Mm-hmm. I forgot his name.
Yeah, I forgot his name too, but he did it with like a pole and to balance.
He was a tightrope walker.
Yeah.
There's a movie on him.
There is, yeah,
with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
It's actually really good. Highly recommend.
Oh, you watched it?
Yeah, it was really good.
But yeah, I mean, it's possible. That's what I'm trying to say. But it's
it didn't look that hard. Like it looked thick enough.
It looked pretty thick, man. It wasn't like a tightrope.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
You had enough space. I think as much as the height might scare you, like as long as like
I know.
You maintain that balance, it could have been done. The rain I think is probably the hardest thing to overcome in that 100%. and possibly wind when if it is windy and rainy at the same time.
I thought like lightning was gonna strike on the pole because like the thunder came first.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, it's
already but I mean, like logically, if you're thinking at that moment, you see the clouds coming, you see the rain or about to rain, thunder. I'll be like, let me get through before it rains. You know what I mean?
Speed it up.
Let's speed this up. I'm already on it. I'm already in the middle of it. Might as well get through, right? And then the other guy, he's like that one dude who I think he was a Korean guy who was like going and then he's like, oh no, I want to go back. And he's trying to go back, and you're like, dude. How are you gonna survive if you're gonna go back through another human being? That's so much harder than going in front towards.
And then he takes somebody down with him.
Yeah, it's like
oh no,
literally no one in front of you. Just go straight. You'll win money and you'll also survive. Like
so dumb. It's right. Death montage. Cute.
Yeah. A lot of frustrating moments in that scene. For sure, and I think that's really where it kind of ruined it for me. But there are little moments like we kind of mentioned, the card game moments that kind of annoyed me. But even at the end, when they're doing the e-card game, what kind of did not make sense for me was Rinko's motivation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like the reason why she decided to give him a loan.
Right.
It just didn't really wasn't convincing for me, like
it's like, well, even from like the start, you can kind of maybe guess or kind of suspect that, I don't know, she sees something in him, or like she's definitely an important character of the movie, and like, something's going to happen with her and like Kaiji, and that they kind of take sides, but there's nothing specifically said that like pushes that over the edge.
Yeah, unless she's like completely like a gambler herself, and she's just like, yeah, I trust in this guy, this kid to win it for me, because like it's a very high stakes thing, right? Like she would have to go underground, and she would have to work for forever, and and like lose all of her or whatever, and just like the way that it happened, like. It was just not convincing, how he realizes that he can win like at the elevator or like near the elevator, and then the bathroom thing, and then he's like, oh,
because it would be like Rinko Endo would have to be like, oh, I see something in this guy, like
right,
like he has to be like the one,
like
a Neo situation.
There's something really like convincing enough in him, or like the way that he can do it that would like convince her to be all in it, because you know it's basically her life, right? She's staking her life on him, and she didn't even look like she felt persuaded during the game when it, you know, that moment, the twist right before the twist. Yeah, she basically, you know, was like, "Oh crap, we lost."
Yeah, she's like, I'm
like she like, you know, starts walking her off, and then that's when, you know, he kind of flips it and he's like, "Oh no, it's a citizen, got you," right? But it's like, even she didn't trust in him at that moment, and then you know that happened. So it really kind of was like,
like whatever.
Yeah, it just really felt like they're just doing it so that they can have that moment with the main character, you know, being victorious over Tonegawa.
I mean, they try to pin the whole thing on like that Endo was kind of like a rebel in the company, right? Because she never jived with the whole Squid Game thing of like.
That also did not make sense. Like, why would she be there? Like,
well, remember, like in the very beginning, the way it sends it up, it's that like basically she was kind of, I don't want to say frowned upon in the company, but basically Tonegawa kind of like took the cake or whatever, and there's like a gray area in the movie, and I guess you can kind of assume that Endo like maybe lost a high position in the company or just like took a hit to be kind of like an errand boy situation. And yeah, she just doesn't have like the same amount of like power, and she kind of like maybe has like a certain disdain for the company.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It just feels very, I guess, ironic and hypocritical of her to be like disgusted by the games that they're playing when she's literally the one that puts people into that position, right?
Right.
That's what I'm just like, okay. Like, it's just like, okay, girl. Like, you're disgusted by this game, but you literally put people there. So it's just kind of.
But by like the end, it was like she's no better than anybody, right? Because she swindles Kaiji at the end anyway. So, you know, it was all like, you're too trusting, guy. Yeah, I don't know. It be what it be, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing was.
I did like the e-card game, though. I thought that was a pretty fun game.
The e-card game?
Yeah. Like the Citizen and like, I think that'd be a fun game to play in real life. Like just to play.
Like straight up guessing it.
Yeah, straight up guessing game. Kind of, it's also like the bluff. You can, you know, like the bluffing and and that aspect of the game. I think is pretty neat.
Yeah. It's a good moment. I mean, like that was like, okay, this is kind of what this movie is really about. Situation. It's like, he also like Kaiji never really felt like the mastermind of a character that he is for me. You know, where he's kind of, I guess, supposed to be like the thinker, right? Like the very like I
think it's the duality, right? Like it's like there are moments when he's so stupid, and there are moments when he like tries to really like outwit people, and it's that like it's too much of a polarity that you feel like it's inconsistent almost, right?
Sure.
It's like whenever you need to have him pull out that MasterCard, like that's when he does it.
Yeah.
But never really feels like he's that character.
Right.
And then, I don't know if you understand fully what I mean, but yeah.
I kind of get what you mean. Yeah, because like he just feels like a loser.
Yeah.
Like 80% of the time that we're watching him, and it isn't until like specifically like in the scenes and like when he's kind of like backed into the corner that it's like
like finally my superpower.
Yeah, I got it. You know.
Yeah.
And I feel like in all times, like he like explodes with like, this is my master plan after it's done. But like while like he's doing it, the narrative switches to like the other party, right? Whereas like I think like Funai, right, when he was like, I got this guy, like I obviously know that it's like the scissors that he had because I swindled him before this game, and then when he flips it over, it's like, gotcha, bitch. and then we go into Kaiju is like, no, I got you. This is the plan, blah, blah, blah. And the same thing with like Tonegawa, where it's like, we're on in his mind for like a solid like 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then at the very end, it's like, Kaiju's like, no, actually, I'd never swap the cards. I just wanted to make you think.
Yeah, that might be like we kind of talked about before, like a execution issue, you know? As much as it is a character thing. I think it's because of that, the way that they portray it and execute it, that makes it feel that way, you know?
Right. Just a little dull,
Yeah.
I guess.
But like, it feels too scripted. Like, it feels, I don't know, it feels like,
no, that's a good word.
you know, like, it literally feels like, obviously it's scripted, but like, it really feels like they're just like going in order and like making sure like everything, you know, fits and everything.
Yeah.
You know, they say all the words that they need to say.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
But with no like meaning or like meat behind any of it, so to speak. Yeah, that's why it feels like so like an adapted work, because it's like, oh, we should really hit like this part, and like we should really hit this part, and then we should really hit that part, you know. And like, we got to do the E card or whatever. We wouldn't do it justice if we didn't do the E card, you know, that kind of deal. But it is what it is. It was just kind of shocking too, though, just to see like, I mean, once we got to the bridge scene, I was like, oh, like this was definitely like Squid Game definitely took this, and like this was like a huge inspiration for that show, and just like shocking to be like how much better they did it, like, how much it was like, this is the Squid Game before the Squid Game.
Yeah.
And then like, it's one of those moments where it's like you see something so bad and you go, I could do that. Like, I need to do that better.
You're probably like, I could do this better.
He's like, I need to do that justice. That guy ruined my favorite manga.
It kind of really felt that way. And I haven't watched the manga. Maybe the manga's better.
Maybe. I haven't read it either.
But for sure, Squid Game is way better.
Yeah.
I think way better told, like in execution. I think the general like games and stuff in this movie is not bad. Really, it's not like the rock paper scissors thing was bad. It's not like the beam thing was. I mean, I think the beam thing was the worst, like weakest link in terms of games. But you also have to understand that it's a movie, right?
Yeah.
And so like that's another thing. Like you only have so much time. And it's kind of unfair to be like, because Squid Game is a series and you have a lot more time to develop things.
Yeah.
And if you do watch our Squid Game review, you would know that, you know, there were certain like, I guess, criticisms or like, you know, different things that we felt like that didn't work as well in Squid Game as well. But overall, majority like of the time, we really did enjoy Squid Game, and I think they did execute pretty well, like really well. But I think in this movie, it really falls into that trap of like repetition and also just like constant telling the audience everything kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And the length of it didn't really warrant the 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think it was run time. Yeah.
Too long and they're not doing anything with it. Yeah, I mean, like you can kind of see, especially if you kind of compare it to Squid Games, like the potential and sort of things that they could have taken advantage of. That, you know, maybe like simple things that just could have heightened the movie and kind of experience
the tension of it.
Sure, yeah. Like I said, like I think for me, I think like the biggest thing is just like motivation and just giving like a reason as to why we're sort of watching it, or just a reason like why a character is doing a certain thing. Like we talked Rinko, especially with Endo. I think there's a lot of potential with that could have been done. With Kaiji as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, just some of the other characters.
Yeah, it's really like a very fundamental motivation issue and also execution issue.
Yeah.
And just like more show don't tell issue. You know, like those kinds of things that really like makes it the potential of the movie kind of, you know,
go down.
Falls. Yeah.
No potential.
I mean, there is a lot of, obviously Squid Game, you can see that there is a lot of potential in the premise of this movie.
Right. It was Japan's fault why that guy had to like wait 10 years to get it made. You know, they were like,
yeah. But I mean, I think after watching this movie, there's so many things you'd be like, you can learn from it, right?
Yeah.
Like all the things that you shouldn't do. And I think he's like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to, walk this path instead of that path.
Yeah.
And I think that really, I don't know if he watched this movie. He probably did. Or at least the manga. If this is pretty true to the manga, then there is a lot there that you could kind of be like, yeah, I'm not gonna do this because and that's credit to the director, right? Like understanding that you can't translate a manga 1-to-1 as well. Like there are things that work in film or work in mangas that don't work in film, and work in films that don't work in mangas, right?
Right.
And that's also another thing that you need to understand if you want to adapt something. And yeah,
it's a whole other conversation. We should dedicate an episode just for fun, just for I kind of that.
I mean, but another thing though, watching this movie, reviewing this movie it was fun comparing between the two. Once I realized,
it's just funny. Like I really didn't even think about it until the bridge scene, and it was once you see that Brave Man's Road scene, it's like almost 1-to-1 to
it's so uncanny there. Yeah. But for me, I realized that as soon as he got onto the ship, because you see all the people who are desperate for money and they're basically fighting for money. I was like, oh, and they're playing a game. I'm like, okay, this is
Squid Games.
Yeah, this is Squid Game.
This is Squid Games
0.5 or whatever.
The prequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was like, oh, and then I was doing it, and then the bridge, and then once they pulled out the vest, I was like,
yeah, the vest
literally came out of nowhere.
That's
I was like,
literally that.
Yeah. And then the dinner scene, and everybody was rich, and I was like, all right, I see it now. The curtains are pulled back. But yeah, overall, I don't know. I didn't like it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I skipped around a lot in this movie.
Really?
Because especially the bridging, because I was like, oh, they're gonna spend 20 minutes doing a monologue, and I was like, I'm not sitting around for this.
Yeah. The time that they spent on the monologue, they spent on suspense between the tension between the characters, it probably would have made it better.
Yeah.
It would have actually been good if they were all in it together in the beginning, right before they get on the bridge. And then they start going on the bridge, and then people start getting scared. One guy falls off, and then the guy behind him is gonna be if they were oh dude, get off, you have to go forward faster. Yeah. If there was some kind of immediate pressure because of what the game that they're playing, that would have made it a lot more fun. Yeah, rather than them all being so kind to each other and being
we're gonna do it together.
If the guy behind them was get out, I really need to move, I can't stay here longer. If there was something that pushed them into conflict, it would have made it so much more suspenseful. And
that's what I was gonna say. I think that's why even the first rock paper scissors card game was more interesting, because you had Funai there. And that just he's the clear mini villain in that scene, obviously. And now you have two sides in that game. It turned from one premise of the game itself into a whole other conflict once Funai was introduced there.
Yeah,
and that if you kind of had that angle with creating tension in the bridge scene, and you had bad guys versus good guys there, that kind of could have added to it.
I agree. And the one little thing that I kind of felt was a missed opportunity in the card game in the beginning was when he was playing Funai. I knew that it wouldn't happen, but I thought that if they did do it this way, it probably would have made Kaiji a more interesting character, and also made the whole scene better or more interesting. Maybe not better, but more interesting was when Funai and Kaiji first start doing their draws, right?
Right.
And then Funai this first first lie, right?
Right.
And if Kaiji realized that he lied, and he tested Funai, and he did the opposite of, I thought that would have made it more interesting. I knew that they wouldn't do it, just because the flow of the movie, I felt like they would just make Kaiji a dumb dude.
He's the innocent like baby.
Yeah, innocent,
like,
and then it's the first game, and he's kind of naive at that moment, and so I kind of understood where they were going for in terms of that. But if they kind of made him into that like dude who kind of noticed it and was like testing the waters and is like, oh, like I see him like making the wrong move, and he's like he tests Funai in that way.
Right.
I thought it might have made that situation more interesting, but you would have to kind of change the whole scene then, obviously. But I don't know. I thought that kind of would have given Kaiji credibility as possibly a good gambler, and also kind of develop this like tension between the two characters.
What got me was like even before that, they were like, Kaiji was like pinning himself like like the black sheep amongst everybody, where he's like, everybody's like, going for carnal instincts. They're all going crazy. They're like, oh, we got to play the game of ball. He's like, no, they're all just feeding into it. Like, I got to sit here and think. Like, I got to think it through. There's got to be a way. And then he like sheeps himself.
He just gets he just gets like, taken away by Funai.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man. Like, it was that easy.
Yeah.
I saw it coming. I was like, this guy's going to rip you off, bro. He's just going to.
Yeah, like, it's just, there's so, like, okay, like, the first time he rips you off, right?
Red flags.
First time, it's okay. First time, is passable. The second time, is your fault, right? Like, the third time, it's definitely, fool me once, right? And I think that's the thing, right? It's like, is he really that, like, dumb?
Yeah.
And that kind of ruined it for me, because it's like, like what we talked about, that kind of like polarity where like there's these moments of genius that he does, and then there's these moments where he's just completely stupid.
It's like, I don't know who is who. I don't know who he is. Like it doesn't really work. But
and I do think that the actor kind of felt like he was overacting at moments, like it just I know
that for everybody, but
but like him in general, I think that there's just moments where he just feels so like I don't know, almost fake. Like he's just like animated in ways that kind of feels like a manga or in one way, or like like sometimes some Japanese movies do this a lot where like they just like have this really bombastic acting style, which kind of, I don't know, didn't work as well for me.
I mean, but like it's different here. Like it feels way more dramatized, or just like like out of reality a little bit, right? Like like in the beginning, like even when we first meet him, it's kind of like that when he's like kicking the Mercedes, and like all that stuff, and like getting the beer, and then like everything just kind of adds to. Like
you can pass it off as like his personality, but like still it just kind of feels a little
even in the world that it's lived in, it's like, kind of feels that way. So, but it's a reuniting cast from Death Note, if you remember.
Exactly.
We got him back, Light, and then we got a little cameo, not really cameo, by Kenichi Matsuyama.
Yeah.
Who like I hardly even recognized in the movie. And then he goes and dies. So
no, I saw his face. It's like it was a very familiar face. I just couldn't link where he was from.
Little minor role for L in the movie. Wasted talent, but it's okay. It's cool. Don't worry. It's not. It's whatever. I mean.
Yeah, the wind pressure was ridiculous, dude. I was like.
It really got me when he was like, Tanagawa is like, it's all according to my plan.
And it was funny because. Kaiji was like looking up.
He's like, something's wrong.
He sees the old man's face.
Yeah, I saw him and I was like, who the fuck is that? I really forgot who that guy was for a while.
That was so random too. I'm like, huh?
It's like, what?
Why does that make you feel like something's wrong?
I know.
It's just, it was.
My thing is like, okay, hold on. So you're in slavery, right? Like you've been given this chance. You lose the game. It's like in Squid Games when that guy comes up to you and he's like, you want to like play the card game or whatever? Yeah. And then you lose, and then you get put into slavery or whatever, right? And then you're in slavery for like a month. Some of those people are in slavery for like years, we're going to guess, right? but they can all volunteer themselves for Brave Man Road, and nobody just is like, we should just do that.
Yeah,
is that not better than?
I mean, there's a lot of like things that don't work, right, in this movie, and that is another thing. Yeah, like it's like only he volunteers for that. Like you have an opportunity to leave, make money, and get out. But
and you get offered more money than what you were initially offered.
That's true.
In the first game.
That's true.
What was it, like 3 million in the rock paper
something
scissors?
like that.
But here you can get 10 million.
Yeah. And if it was that easy to just like, because like, what's his name? The guy who was on the bridge, who was in the hospital.
Oh yeah,
I forget his name. What's his name?
Sahara.
Yeah, Sahara. Yeah, like it made it sound like he had no more choice. Yeah, which is why he did that. But literally anyone can volunteer. Yeah,
that's like the impression. And then Kaiji's like, "No, I'm gonna go too." And we're like, "That was allowed the whole time." Are you serious?
That was also funny. It was like. You made it seem like it was like the...
And then Koji goes with him. So like he brought like everybody with him.
Yeah, that too. He just comes along too.
So stupid.
It just made it seem like it was like this like, last resort kind of thing. Right. And it was like, just volunteer if you want.
You only get this option if you can't be a slave anymore. It sounded like...
If you can't work, if you can't be a slave anymore,
It's like an all or nothing option for like if you get lucky to have it. But no, everybody
anyone can do it if they want. So, and then they have a TV watching it too.
And that was like... are they going to make an example out of this guy? Like, what was that all about?
It's like, what's the point of that? What's the point of like showing them what the game is? Isn't it the point of like
that was like
the
an
suspense,
exclusive,
right? Like you don't know what the game is, so like when you're volunteering for the unknown. But you kind of ruined that moment if you would get to watch everyone
Here's
doing
what you
it.
can expect now. Oh man, yeah, it doesn't work because some things just don't work. It's funny. It's fun though. It's a good laugh. That's what
I liked the comparisons to it, and I think there's things that they could have improved on it. I did enjoy the 2 games at least, the first one and the third one. Yeah, like the third one, I think the first game was probably the most polished.
Sure.
Polished. But I think the third one was I liked it the most, but it was kind of, predictable, I guess, right?
Right.
First 2 he loses, and then third one he comes back. It's kind of par for the course for this kind of thing.
Redemption arc.
Yeah, redemption arc.
I thought he was gonna do it in like one game, and it kind of tripped me up when he like lost, then had to go to Endo, and then like comes back.
What I was like kind of baffled by was like he had 3 chances, right?
Yeah,
and he loses in 2 games. It's just like,
but then he like wins. Then he goes back for another 3-1, I suppose. But then he wins one game and then like wins it all. So I was like, why didn't you just play?
No, I think he's taking up on the last chance that he had instead of another 3-1.
Right.
So like he loses 2 games, so he technically has 1 game left.
Right.
And so that's what he's like saying. Oh, I'm gonna play one more game. And then Tonegawa's like, you don't have any money.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, but I do have money, right? But it's just like,
okay, fair.
It's just kind of like, did you not have the foresight to think about like splitting your money in three, you know?
I thought that's what he did at the beginning when he was
that's what I'm saying.
He was like
the possibility of losing twice and then I'll have one more chance to, redeem myself. But no, he's like, oh yeah, I just lost it in 2. That's the thing. Like, I'm like, is he thinking? Like, is he like, like,
where's your brain
calculating these things or like, does he just have these spark of brilliance? Like, it just kind of annoys me in that way.
Just little moments. They come and go for Kaiji.
Yeah.
They come and go.
And Rinko is betting on that dude. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like,
it's like, well, if you got it wrong the first 2 times, then the genius sparks on the third.
Time's a charm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But anyway, what is your favorite game of that? How did you like the movie?
Yeah.
Is Kaiji your favorite character of all time?
Out of the 3 movies that we've watched so far,
is this number 1 on the list? And what did you think of this in the Squid Games as well? Actually, it's a very interesting comparison that we found out. But on the next week, what we're watching for the last episode of the series is Kaiji Ito.
I'm actually kind of interested. Like, I wonder, how the other 2 movies would be like.
I want to watch the third one just because like came out
recently,
10 years. Like what made them like actually finish that so long after?
Maybe the manga is good.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'll give it a little read. I'll check it out and see. But no. For real, we won't be watching Kaiji. We'll actually be watching March Comes In Like a Lion. That's kind of a smooth transition from here because like that's an actual game and not gambling at all. Because there's no wagering money. It's just a board game. So they're playing to compete. But that kind of moves in here. We're like break away from like the casino games, and then now we're like into actual games. So I'll take that. I'll justify it in that way. But yeah, we're watching the first one. That one also has a sequel, and there's supposed to be a third movie. I don't know where this third movie is. I might complain some more next week though, so we'll wait for that. But yeah, so March Comes In Like a Lion came out 2017, and I will see you for that one. Otherwise, a quick shout out to our Patreon page. If you want to see March Comes In Like a Lion and a review early, go ahead and subscribe, along with bonus episodes and other goodies. Other than that, we'll see you next week. Peace.
Bye.